Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Bava Batra. We are up to Perek Bet Mishna Gimel. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'elui Nishmat Neria Ben Svetlana Ranbai Veliyahu Ben Burchai Israelov Chana Bad Miriam Sason Ben Ryan Yoshua Ben Shifra Menuchatam Began Eden Amen and Labdi Ben Chaim Lechaim v'derefua Shelemav Daniel Shalom Ben Rosa Betok Shah Cholei Israel and Dachlama Merav Binyamin Od Zion Chai Ben Dvorah. The Mishnah lists more things that a person may not do within his own property because they might cause harm to the property of his neighbor. Lo yiftach adam chanut shel nachtomin v'shel tzabain tachat otzaro shel chavero. A person may not open a bakery or a dyer shop in a room that he owns, which is located beneath the storeroom of his fellow, in which grain or oil is stored, because the smoke and heat of these places can damage grain and oil. A bakery and a dyer shop produce a great deal of smoke and heat, and that is why we are concerned for damage. If the neighbor has not yet made his upper story into a storeroom, these uses are permitted in the room below. Velo refet bakar, nor may he make a stable there, because the odor of the animals can also damage grain or oil. Be'emet be'yain itiru, truly. Now the word be'emet, truly, when used in this way, refers to a law that is undisputed and accepted by all. Truly, the sages permitted opening a bakery or dyer shop beneath a storm of wine, because their smoke and heat do not harm wine. The wines of Eretz Yisrael were unaffected by smoke, and heat would actually improve them. Therefore, opening a bakery or dyer shop under a storehouse of wine is permitted. If, however, the wine was a type that would be harmed by heat, opening such shops beneath the storm would also be forbidden. But they did not permit making a stable there, because the odor of a stable can harm even wine. The Mishnah speaks about what uses of one's property are forbidden because they might disturb a neighbor's sleep. If a person opens a store in a common courtyard, one of the partners in a shared courtyard opens a shop there, and customers enter the courtyard to buy his goods, his neighbor can protest against his action and say to him, I cannot sleep because of the noise made by the people entering and leaving your store. Although the shopkeeper is a part owner of the courtyard, any of his neighbors can protest against the entry of the customers who do not own a share of the courtyard. Even if his neighbors had originally given him permission to open the store, they may still protest because they can claim that they had not realized that the customers would make so much noise. However, a person may make utensils in the court and then go out and sell them in the marketplace. And his neighbor cannot protest and say to him, I cannot sleep because of the noise of the hammer that you're using to make the utensils. Although making utensils is noisy, the neighbors cannot protest his activity because it is being done by the owner of the property himself, and making utensils is considered a normal usage of one's property, which is allowed. Selling utensils, however, was usually done in the marketplace and may not be done in one's home except with the permission of one's neighbors. Nor can his neighbor protest and say, I cannot sleep because of the noise of the millstones that you are using to grind grain in the courtyard. A person is permitted to set up millstones in a jointly owned courtyard and use them to grind grain, to sell in the marketplace, or to grind the grain of others for pay, as long as the customers do not come and go in the courtyard itself. This too is a permitted use of one's own property, which cannot be prevented by neighbors. Nor can he say, I cannot sleep because of the noise of the children whom you are teaching in the courtyard. The neighbors cannot protest even if the children do not live in the courtyard. And the Gemara on page 21a explains that the Mishnah is referring to children who are being taught Torah. This was allowed by a special decree of the sages to assure that the glory of Torah would be increased. If, however, the teacher is training the children in a trade or other secular knowledge, the residents can protest the presence of students who do not live in the courtyard. And that is the end of Mishnah Gimel. Now again, Mishnah Gimel spoke of restrictions placed upon a person so he will not cause harm to his neighbor. Mishnah Bet, Mishnah Gimel. Mishnah Dalid discusses cases where a person is restricted so his neighbor will not lose a benefit that he will otherwise receive. Someone whose wall was already built at a right angle to the wall of his neighbor. Lo yismoch lo kotel acher, may not build another wall near it, meaning he may not build a second wall parallel to his neighbor's wall. The neighbor Reuven has a wall on his property enclosing his garden. The owner of the adjacent property, Shimon, already has a wall that extends to the edge of Reuven's wall. Shimon now wishes to build a second wall on his own property parallel to Reuven's wall so that the three walls would form the shape of a bet. He is not allowed unless he distances the new wall from the neighbor's wall at least 4 amot, so that people will be able to walk in the space between the parallel walls, thereby firming up the ground and strengthening the foundation of the neighbor's wall. This restriction applies even when there is no perpendicular wall, and Shimon is simply building a wall parallel to Reuven's wall. The Mishnah speaks of a case where a perpendicular wall was already in place to teach that even though the perpendicular wall would discourage most people from walking near Reuven's wall in any event, because they would have to walk around the perpendicular wall, Shimon may not build the parallel wall in a way that would prevent them from walking next to Reuven's wall at all. Now the Mishnah's ruling applies where Reuven's wall encloses a garden, in which case people do not walk on the ground near the wall on his side of the wall. But if Reuven's wall encloses a courtyard, and the courtyard is in an old city where people have walked for many years and already packed down the ground, Shimon was allowed to build his wall near it. Now the commentators discuss why Shimon should be forbidden to build on his own property, just so that Reuven will have the benefit of people walking there. And the Tosfot explain that ownership of a wall includes the right to have people walk near it, so one who builds a wall in a manner that prevents people from walking near his neighbor's wall, it's considered to be actively damaging it. The Mishnah teaches a similar law with respect to building a wall near a neighbor's windows, and so too if one builds a wall near the windows of a neighbor, milmalan umilmatan umikinegdan 400. He must leave a space of 4 amot above the windows or below them, as well as a space of 4 amot in front of them, meaning the top of the wall must be at least 4 amot higher or lower than the windows, so there will be no invasion of the neighbor's privacy, and the wall must be at least 4 amot distant from the window horizontally, so that it does not block the light from coming in through the windows. The 4 amah height differences are required so that he will be unable to stand on his wall and see into his neighbor's window in the case of a short wall, or lean down from the top of his wall and see into the window in the case of a tall wall. The 4 amah horizontal distance is required so that the new wall will not block light from entering the window. The law requiring a person not to block the light from a neighbor's window applies only when the neighbor has already established a legal right of chazakat to the light by having built the wall containing the windows at least 3 years earlier without protest from his neighbor during that period. And that is the Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.